Hello, Year 4, and welcome to day 27 of our home learning. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of February 2021. I've got my email address down there if any of you want to email me your fantastic work that you're doing. Remember, presentation, what we expect at school, you should be doing at home. Okay, so that's both me and Mr. Smith. Okay, so let's move on. So our early morning work is our grammar, is our spag. So what you need to do is you need to write down the sentence. Furiously, the wind howls through the towering trees as I began to shake. Once you've done that, you can start the video again. Okay, number 1. You need to identify the conjunction in that sentence. Then you need to say, is it a coordinating or a subordinating? Remember a white bus and fanboys? Which one is it? Number 2, look at and find the fronted adverbial. Which word is the fronted adverbial? And then you need to replace it, you need to change it with a different one, but it's still got to mean the same. So which word is the fronted adverbial? And then change it to a different one, but make sure the meaning is the same. Number 3, identify the preposition. So which word in that sentence is the preposition? Remember, a preposition tells you where something is, or yeah. Now, number 4, you've got to add a missing comma. And why is that comma there, needed there? And number 5, identify the main clause. Now remember, the main clause is the main part of the information. It will stand by itself. So pause the video now until you've done those, and then we'll go through them. Okay, so our answers. Furiously, the wind howled through the towering trees as I began to shake. So the first one was, which word was the conjunction? And the word is as. And it is a subordinating conjunction. It is part of the fanboys, isn't it? Number 2, you need to look at the fronted adverbial, and then you needed to change it to a word that means exactly the same. So the fronted adverbial is furiously, and you could have changed it to fiercely or frantically. The next, number 3, is which word is the preposition? And the word was through, because it's the wind is the subject and it's telling you where it is. It's howled through the towering trees. So number 4, you had to put in the missing comma, and you needed to put your missing comma after furiously because it is to separate the fronted adverbial from the main clause. Remember, after a fronted adverbial, you always have a comma. And then the last one, number 5, you had to identify the main clause, that is the main part of the sentence. And it's the wind howled through the trees. It can't be I began to shake, because that doesn't make sense all by itself. Well done for having a good go. Okay, so now we're going to look at our English, and all our English is based on how to train your dragon. So what our task is today is we're going to plan the story that we've already read, and then you are going to plan out your own ending. Okay, so we're going to use a story walk to plan out what we've already done. So what has happened so far? So I've started you off. So a group of boys wanted to become part of the hairy hooligan tribe. The other boys did not like that Hiccup was going to be the leader. The initiation test was to go and steal a dragon from Wild Dragon Cliff. It was a perilous climb up Dragon Mountain. When they got there, Hiccup was scared, but he was determined to get a scary dragon. And then Fishleg sneezed and woke up the dragons. What happened after that? Remember, it's only the main parts. Then you need to think, right, what could happen, the parts that you haven't read? What could happen towards the end of the story? How will the story end? And you've got to decide and add it to your story walk. So you need to pause the video now. Okay, after you have done your date and your target. So the date is Tuesday the 23rd of February 2021, and your target is I can retell the main events in a story and predict the ending. Okay, so pause the video now, and then you can get on with your story walk. It may need a whole page, 2 whole pages, but it's only the main events. Okay then, so our maths challenges, they're not very tricky, okay, and it won't take you long. So for task 1, you've got to write the fact families for the multiplication. So the example is 3 times 5 equals 15. So it shows you that 5 times 3 is 15, 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. You've got 9 there to do. Task 2, you have got some numbers and you have to round them to the nearest 10 and to the nearest 100. If you need to draw a number line, then do it. Okay? Task 3, you have got to answer the following addition questions using the column method. Task 4, fill in the number lines. So you've got minus 24, a missing number, and then 0. A missing number, then 24, then 36, and then 48. So I would work out what is the difference between 24 and 36. And then once you know that, you can then find if I have to add that number, the difference to 0, what is it? If I have to subtract it from 0, what is it? And then do the same for the other one. Task 5. Use a written multiplication method to work out these questions. Tom earns 24 coins a day. How many coins does he earn in a full week? So there's 7 days in a week. So I would do 24 multiplied by 7. And you can do the rest exactly the same. Task 4, I know there's a lot here, but it is to get your brain working. Okay, so task 4, complete the table by adding 10, then 100 to the number given. So the first one is done for you. So the number's 24. Adding 10, you get 34. Adding 100, you get 124. So you need to pause the video now while you write those on your paper or in your book. Okay, so maths, we started with time yesterday, didn't we? So let's see if you can remember what we were learning yesterday, and it was all about the hour and the half hour. We're now going to look at what happens when you want to know what the time is in an hour's time, or an hour before, or 2 hours after. Okay? But first of all, what I would like you to do is I would like you to have a look at those clocks and tell me the time. So the white clock, we have 10 o'clock. The blue clock, we have 2 o'clock, because the big hand is at the 12, which is o'clock, and the short hand, or the hour hand, is pointing to the 2. We then have 2 yellow clocks. So both have their big hand pointing at the 6, and that means it is half past, because it's halfway round the clock. The first one is 7:30, because the hour hand, the small hand, is in between the 7 and the 8. And because I know that the small hand is between the 12 and the 1, and the minute hand is at the 6, I know that it is 12:30. So, can you tell me, if it is 1 hour later, what happens? The big hand, the minute hand, goes all the way around your clock, and it ends back at where it started. So that clock is reading what time? 3 o'clock. So an hour later is 4 o'clock. What time is it on the next one? It is 11 o'clock. So if it's 1 hour later, it becomes 12 o'clock. What about 1 hour before? So let's go back to our clock that says 3 o'clock. So we're going back an hour. So it's going anti-clockwise. Our big hand is going anti-clockwise, and it goes all the way back round to the 12, saying it's o'clock, and it will become 2 o'clock. If I started at 11 o'clock and what was the 1 hour before? It goes anti-clockwise, and it becomes 10 o'clock. Let's have a look to see what we have. I want to know, what time is it an hour later? So we have, what time do we have? We have 8:30. So what time is it an hour later? So it goes all the way around our big hand from the 6, and it goes all the way around the clock for 1 hour, and it will be 9:30. What time is that showing? 1:30. So an hour later will be 2:30. What about an hour before? So I'm starting at 8:30 and I'm working back an hour. So it will become 7:30. And it starts off at 1:30 and it becomes 12:30. Okay, so what I would like you to do is complete your Tuesday's math sheet, writing the time and drawing the time. It will have Tuesday on, so you need to pause the video now. Thank you. Okay, our reading workshop. So we're up to chapter 7 of The Firework Maker's Daughter, and we're not far off the end. I hope you are really enjoying this book. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to read it, and then when I have finished, I want you to read up to page 105 only. It is a very long chapter. So I will start to read chapter 7. The invited firework makers arrived the next day, together with all the other famous artists and performers. The Chinese Scout and Guide Opera Company, Senor Archibaldo Gomez and his Filipino Mamba Orchestra, the Norwegian National Comedy Cowbell Players, and many others. They all disembarked from the SS Indescribable with their luggage and their instruments and their costumes. What do you think the word disembarked means? Yeah, it means to leave, to get off. And began to rehearse at once. The first firework maker was Dr. Puffinflash from Heidelberg. He had invented a multi-stage rocket which exploded at a height of 2,000 feet into the shape of a gigantic Frankfurter sausage. While a huge instrument he'd invented played, the ride of the Valkyries, Herr Puffinflash had gone to immense trouble to prepare something just as spectacular for the New Year festival, and he supervised the unloading of his enormous equipment with scrupulous care. Scrupulous care with a lot of care. He kept his eye on it. The second visiting firework maker was Signor Scorsini from Naples. His family had been making fireworks for generations, and his speciality was noise. For this display, he had invented a full-scale representation of a battle at sea, featuring the noisiest fireworks in the world, and with King Neptune emerging from the water to see fair play and declare peace. The third and last firework maker was Colonel Sam Sparkington from Chicago. His display was called the greatest fireworks show in the galaxy, and it usually featured Colonel Sparkington himself, wearing a white Stetson hat and riding a horse. This time it was rumoured he had invented an especially exciting display involving something never before seen in the art of pyrotechnics. And while the three visiting firework makers were assembling their displays, Lal Chand and Lila were working on theirs. Time flew past. They barely slept. They scarcely washed. They hardly ate. They mixed vats of golden serpents. They ordered 1.5 tons of flowers of salt. They invented something so new neither could think of a name for it until Lila said, "Foaming," and snapped her fingers. "Moss," said Lal Chand. "That's right." Lila showed Lal Chand her delayed fuse method, but it didn't work until he thought of adding some spirits of saltpetre, and then it worked magnificently. It would let them set off 50 or 100 fireworks at once, which had previously been impossible. Then Lal Chand came up with a spectacular finale, but it depended on something even more impossible, burning a fuse underwater. Lila solved that by thinking of caustic naphtha, and they tried it and it worked. Okay, I want you to pause the video now while you read up to page 105. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the events in order. And this is something that you find really tricky. So I'm going to use events of the one chapter, okay, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But first of all, what I want you to do is I want you to write today's date and the target. So pause the video now. Okay, so you've done that. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the events from chapter 6. Father and daughter set to work making a fabulous firework display. Both Chelak and Lila were told to bow to the king. Hamlet drank from the river whilst Lila and Chelak took fruit from the trees. The king tells Chelak that he does not have a job anymore. The king sent his bodyguards to escort Hamlet back to the royal palace, and Hamlet wanted to speak to the king alone. And crowds surrounded Hamlet, and Lila got upset, and the king tells Lila and Lalchand about the firework competition. Now, sometimes you might need to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the right order. So we need to decide which one comes first. So I'm going to have a look through. I'm going to remind myself about what happened in chapter 6 and let's see how I've done. I'm going to write them in order. So what happened first? So number 1 would be Hamlet drank from the river, whilst Lila and Chelak took fruit from the trees. Then number 2 would be crowds surrounded Hamlet and Lila got upset. Number 3 would be the king sent his bodyguards to escort Hamlet back to the royal palace. Number 4, both Chelak and Lila were told to bow to the king. Number 5, and the king tells Chelak that he does not have a job anymore. Number 6, Hamlet wanted to speak to the king alone. Number 7, the king tells Lila and Lalchand about the firework competition. And number 8, father and daughter set to work making a fabulous firework display. So instead of writing number 1, number 2 next to the sentences, I've just put the sentences in the right order. Okay? So now it's your turn. So from the part that we have read in chapter 7, I have got some sentences that are a bit mixed up. And what you need to do is think about your understanding of the text and about what's happened in the plot. You have to decide what happened first. So you can either, 2 things, you can either write them down like this and then write the numbers next to them. Okay, so the numbers will be mixed up, or you can write them in the correct order. So which one would come first and what would come next and what would come after that. Use the text to help you. Okay, you're just retelling the story, which you can do. So let's see, you can either write them as they are and put the numbers next to the sentence which they come. So you'd find number 1 and put number 1 next to it, then number 2 and so on. Or you can write them in the correct order. It is up to you. So pause the video now whilst you do that. Okay, so our geography, we started to learn about tornadoes. I wonder if you can remember how tornadoes are formed. And your job yesterday was to do a little storyboard about how the tornadoes are formed. Yeah? So I'm hoping you've all done that. And you wrote a sentence underneath to explain. I'm sure you all have. Okay, let's see what we're going to be learning about today. So we're going to be learning about the Fujita scale. So when a tornado occurs, it is given a rating on the Fujita scale. Now this is a bit like when you have an earthquake and you might see on the news about an earthquake, they will say it was something on the Richter scale. Okay, so to measure the tornado and how powerful it is, they use the Fujita scale. And the scale ranges from naught, if it doesn't cause any damage, all the way up to number 5 for the most severe. Okay, now there was a tornado in Moore, Oklahoma, and that was rated 5. Now, over the next couple of days, we will look at what happened there. Now, you have got a Fujita scale card sorting activity in your pack. What I would like you to do is I would like you to complete that, please, for me in a moment. Now, you've also got a Beaufort scale. Now, thankfully, in the UK, in Great Britain, tornadoes are rare, and when they do happen, they are generally very small. So, to measure the speed of the winds in the UK, we use the Beaufort scale, which goes from 0 to 12. So, a tornado rated number 1 on the Fujita scale has much stronger winds than a storm rated 12 on the Beaufort scale. That tells you just how furious the winds of a tornado can be. Okay, so you have, if it's a really strong tornado, it's measured on the Fujita scale, which ranges from 0 to 1 to 5. And you have the Beaufort scale, which is from 0 to 12. Okay? If a tornado is rated number 1 on the Fujita scale, it is much stronger than a storm rated on the 12 on the Beaufort scale. So, what I would like you to do is, you have got this Beaufort scale activity sheet. You have on the second page, you have some phrases and words that are from the missing boxes, and you have to decide what box they go in. Okay? If you haven't got the card sort, then that's fine. Once you've done that, please can you read your book and do some times tables. Have a good evening. Send me some of your lovely work, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.